The heat of the late summer sun pressed down on the county fairgrounds, carrying the smell of popcorn, warm hay, and spilled lemonade. Kids ran between booths with sticky fingers and face paint melting into colorful streaks. Laughter buzzed in the air like an electric hum, bright, loud, and careless. But Maddie Clark felt none of that. She stood at the edge of the Ferris wheel line, her tiny sneakers dusted with dirt, her breath unsteady. Her mother had been gone 49 minutes. Maddie had been counting inside her mind the way she did when she tried not to cry. Mom said she'd be right back. Just a minute. Stay by the lemonade stand, sweetheart. I'll see you in 1 minute. And Mom always came back, always. But not this time. Now Maddie's hands trembled as she clutched the hem of her light denim jacket, the one sprayed with apple blossom perfume earlier that morning, because she loved it when she smelled like Mommy. The fair felt too big suddenly, too loud, too dangerous. Adults towered above her, faces blurred with movement. Every time she looked up for help, people brushed past her with distracted smiles, not noticing the little girl whose heartbeat had begun sprinting in her chest. A sheriff's deputy at the foot of the Ferris wheel was trying to control a line of teenagers. He was the closest authority figure she could find, but he looked busy, overwhelmed. Maddie swallowed hard. Her mom had told her about the signal back when she was 5, after school when they were watching a news story about a child in danger. Her mother knelt and gently took Maddie's hands. If you're ever scared or lost or in trouble and you need help, especially from a police officer, you make this sign, not to just anyone, only to someone who can keep you safe. 2 fingers like this, she taught, folding Maddie's little hand into position, and tuck your thumb under. It means I need help and I can't say it. Understand? Maddie remembered nodding. She remembered her mom's serious eyes. But she never thought she'd actually need it. Yet here she was. She took a shaky step forward, eyes darting across the fairground until she saw something that made her breath hitch. A police dog. A large German shepherd with sharp amber eyes, a dark saddle of fur on his back, wearing a vest that read Police K9 Thor. He walked beside his handler, Officer Ramirez, weaving calmly through the crowds, scanning, alert. Thor looked powerful, wise, like he could understand everything. And suddenly Maddie knew Thor was the one she needed. The deputy near the Ferris wheel hadn't seen her. The ride operator had waved her off, thinking she was simply asking about tickets. Strangers kept brushing past. But Thor was looking at her already. Her throat tightened. Tears stung her eyes, but she blinked hard, refusing to cry. Crying made adults panic. Crying made her mom worry. She needed to be brave, braver than she had ever been. A breath shook out of her as she stepped into the open walkway. Thor's head snapped toward her. His handler, Ramirez, glanced down. Easy boy, what is it? But Thor didn't take his eyes off Maddie. He stood perfectly still, ears forward, tail stiff, not aggressive, just focused. Maddie remembered her mother's voice. Only use the signal when you really need help, sweetheart. Real help, not the small stuff. This wasn't small. This was the biggest thing that had happened to her in her whole life. She lifted her hand slowly. Her fingers trembled, her palm was sweaty. But she made the signal, 2 fingers folded over her thumb, the motion her mother taught her with so much seriousness. That's when everything changed. Thor's ears lifted sharply, his posture tightened. He stepped forward 1 pace, then another. Maddie, a teenage boy walking by, muttered, surprised by the dog's sudden movement. Officer Ramirez turned fully now. Thor, heel, what's gotten into you? But Thor didn't listen. He didn't even blink. He just charged. The dog sprinted from his handler's side, powerful legs kicking up dust. Ramirez stumbled, shocked, almost losing grip on the leash before being dragged forward. Several people gasped and jumped back, as the 90-pound German Shepherd barreled through the walkway, directly toward the small girl with the terrified eyes. Maddie instinctively flinched, her heart leaping to her throat. Was he angry? Did she do the signal wrong? Should she have gone to a grown-up instead? But she didn't move away. She stood perfectly still, because something deep in her heart whispered, "Trust him." Thor reached her in seconds. He didn't jump. He didn't bark. He didn't growl. He simply placed himself beside her, his shoulder pressed lightly against her leg, his head low yet alert, like he was guarding her. A ring of shocked spectators formed instantly. Officer Ramirez rushed over breathless. "Thor, buddy, what the—" Then he saw Maddie's face. The tears she'd been trying so hard to hold back. The signal still trembling in her raised hand. Ramirez knelt down to her level, his voice gentler now. "Hey there, what's going on? Are you hurt?" Maddie shook her head quickly, every emotion battling in her chest. Fear, confusion, relief, panic. "I'm not hurt, I'm okay." Ramirez studied her a moment. Then why did Thor react like that? He doesn't bolt unless someone's in real trouble. She swallowed hard, eyes brimming. "It's my mom," she whispered. People nearby quieted, sensing something serious. Ramirez softened. "All right, is she lost? Did you get separated?" Maddie's lips trembled. She squeezed her hands into fists to stop them from shaking. "I think," she swallowed painfully, "I think she was taken." Everything around them stopped. Voices, music, laughter. It all blurred into silence. The tension snapped through Ramirez's expression instantly. He stood up and signaled to another officer nearby. "We have a possible abduction situation. Notify command." Maddie tugged his sleeve desperately. "Please, you have to believe me. She told me to stay by the lemonade stand. She always comes back, but she didn't. And I saw a man." Her breathing quickened. Thor, sensing her panic, pressed his body closer, grounding her with silent comfort. Ramirez crouched again. "You saw a man. Did he talk to your mom?" I don't know," Maddie said, trying to piece together the memory. "He was near her, and then she walked away with him, but her face looked wrong, like she was scared but pretending she was." Ramirez's jaw clenched. "And you didn't go after her?" "My mom said never to follow a stranger, and never leave where she told me to wait." Her voice cracked. "I didn't want to break the rule, but now she's gone." Thor suddenly whipped his head toward the back of the fairgrounds, a narrow access road partially hidden by equipment trailers. His nose lifted. He sniffed the air sharply. A deep, uneasy rumble started in his chest. Ramirez noticed. "Thor, what is it, boy?" Thor barked once, loud, urgent. Then he pulled on the leash, straining toward the road. Ramirez's brow furrowed. "What's down there?" Maddie turned too. The road was dusty, quiet, leading toward a restricted maintenance area where the crowds thinned and vendor trucks parked. "That's where she went," Maddie whispered. "Down that way." "How do you know?" Ramirez asked carefully. "Because she looked back once and she looked scared. And the man behind her, he was pushing her, not with his hands but with his body, like he didn't want anyone to see." Thor barked again, fiercer this time. A group of deputies rushed over, alerted by the commotion. Ramirez stood tall, urgency in his voice. "Everyone, we may have an active abduction. Thor's picking up something." Before anyone could question the claim, Maddie gasped and pointed toward the ground. There, half buried in the dust near the access road, was something she recognized instantly. Her mother's phone case. The pink one with daisies. Cracked and smeared with a muddy fingerprint. Maddie's breath hitched, tears finally spilling. Thor lowered his head, sniffed the phone case, then lifted his gaze toward the road again, ears sharp, posture rigid. And then he lunged forward, with a force that sent a bolt of fear through everyone watching. Ramirez shouted, "Hold on, Thor, what do you smell?" But Thor wasn't stopping. He was already pulling them all toward the dark, empty road behind the fair. And no one knew what they were about to find. The fairground lights faded behind them as the small group moved toward the deserted access road, led by a German shepherd who refused to slow down. K9 Thor wasn't walking anymore. He was dragging Officer Ramirez with a determination that sent unease through every deputy trailing behind. His muscles were rigid, his ears pinned forward, nose working the air like he was deciphering invisible trails. Maddie half ran, half stumbled beside Ramirez, clutching her mother's cracked phone case like a lifeline. "Slow down, sweetheart," Ramirez said softly, but Thor jerked forward again, nearly pulling him off balance. "He's going somewhere," Maddie whispered, breathless. "He knows." Ramirez didn't answer, not because he disagreed, but because he did agree. Thor wasn't acting on training. He wasn't following commands. He was following something deeper, primal, urgent. A K9 only ignored a handler like this. When the world was whispering danger so loudly, it drowned out everything else. Ramirez swallowed hard. "Stay close to me." The access road dipped behind a row of equipment trailers. The noise of the fair dimmed until it was only a distant blur. Music, laughter, rides creaking, soft, almost mocking. Here it was quiet. Too quiet. Deputy Collins jogged up from behind. "Ramirez, dispatch wants an update. What do we tell them? We don't even know if we have a verified victim." Before Ramirez could answer, Maddie tugged his sleeve with more force than her tiny arm should have had. "I told you I think she was taken," she said, her voice thin but steady. "She wouldn't leave me alone this long, not here, not anywhere." Collins sighed. "Kid, people get turned around at fairs all the time. Maybe your mom." "She didn't get turned around," Maddie shot back. Her voice cracked, but her eyes burned with certainty. "She looked back at me. She looked scared. She looked like she wanted to come back but couldn't." Thor barked once sharply, as if echoing her words. Collins shut up immediately. Ramirez glanced down at Maddie, studying her face. There was something in her, something so raw, so earnest, so painfully real, that he felt his chest tighten. "If she's right," Ramirez murmured, "then we need to move, now." Thor suddenly veered left, pulling them off the road and toward a narrow utility gate behind the livestock barns. "No, no, no, Thor. This isn't the right direction," Ramirez muttered, trying to rein him in. Thor didn't budge. He planted his paws, braced, and barked again. The gate rattled with each pull of his leash. Maddie stepped beside him. "This is where she went. I remember that fence. She looked back when she passed it." Ramirez blinked. "How could you possibly remember?" "Because I was watching her the whole time," Maddie whispered. There was something haunting about that confession. Something that painted a picture of a terrified mother trying not to show fear while being led somewhere she didn't want to go. Thor pawed the bottom of the gate, whining with impatience. "That's a restricted area," Collins said, pulling out his flashlight. "Only vendors and staff use that access path, and after hours it connects to." "The maintenance lot," Ramirez finished. His stomach dropped. Beyond that lot sat three things. The river, a line of abandoned storage sheds, and an old warehouse the county had been meaning to tear down for years. All isolated, all perfect places for someone to disappear. A chill sliced through the hot summer air. Ramirez made a decision. "Collins, call it in. We're treating this as an abduction." Collins hesitated. "Ramirez, that's a big escalation if we're wrong." "If we're right," Ramirez snapped, "we don't get a second chance." Collins swallowed, then stepped away to radio in. Maddie watched them quietly, her small chest rising and falling with fast, short breaths. Her fingers twisted in her jacket sleeve, the one with her mother's perfume still faintly lingering. "Officer Ramirez," she said, voice trembling, Are you going to believe me now?" Ramirez crouched to face her, his voice softening. I believed you the second Thor ran to you. He's trained to detect fear, real fear, and when he saw that signal..." Maddie looked down at her hand. "The sign my mom taught me," she murmured. "She said it was only for emergencies. I never wanted to use it." Ramirez's jaw tightened. "You did the right thing." Thor suddenly pressed his nose into Maddie's palm, as if comforting her. She let out a shaky exhale and stroked his fur. It was the first moment she'd looked even slightly calm. But it didn't last. Collins jogged back. "Dispatch is assigning units to search the perimeter. They want us to hold position until..." Thor erupted into a deep, guttural growl that froze everyone in place. Ramirez stood sharply. "Thor." The dog's entire body went rigid. His hackles rose. His gaze locked through the fence as if he were staring at something invisible but unmistakably threatening. Ramirez lifted his flashlight and aimed it through the chain link. At first he saw nothing, just the shadowed path leading behind the fairgrounds. Then he saw it. A shoe print. A fresh one. Partially smeared. Leading inward. Ramirez's breath hissed out. "We're going through." Collins stiffened. "We can't wait for backup. If someone forced her through here, we don't know how far they've gotten. We move." Thor barked as if agreeing. The officers pushed against the gate, but it was rusted shut. They tried again, no luck. Then Thor did something that made Ramirez's heart skip. He stepped in front of them, lowered his head, backed up 2 paces, and rammed his shoulder into the gate. It clanged violently, shaking the entire fence. He backed up again. "Thor, stop your shoulder." But Thor lunged forward, slamming into the metal with a force that rattled everyone. The gate groaned. Bent. Shifted. One more hit might do it. Thor braced again. "Wait," Maddie cried. Everyone froze. Thor lifted his head, panting, confused. Maddie stepped forward, hands trembling. "There's barbed wire on the other side. He'll get hurt." Her voice cracked. "Please don't let him get hurt. He's the only one who cares." Thor whined softly, nudging her hand. Even in his urgency, he responded to her fear. Ramirez exhaled slowly. "Okay, we're not breaking it, we're climbing it." Collins muttered, "Are you serious?" Ramirez had already grabbed the gate, testing the weak points. "I'll climb over, unhook the chain from the inside, then push it open." He turned to Maddie. "You stay here, right here, don't move." Maddie nodded, hugging Thor's neck instinctively. Ramirez climbed quickly despite the rusted bars, careful to avoid the jagged edges. His boots scraped against the metal, making sharp echoes in the empty space around them. He reached the top, swung a leg over, then dropped down on the other side with a heavy thud. The inside latch was old, nearly fused with rust, but after a few hard yanks the chain fell loose and the gate creaked open. Thor surged forward immediately, nose to the ground, tail stiff, every sense locked on a target. Ramirez didn't stop him this time. They followed the narrow utility path, weeds brushing their legs, gravel crunching beneath their feet. Night had begun falling faster now, shadows thickening, the fair's lights flickering behind them like distant stars. After a few minutes, Maddie tugged Ramirez's sleeve again. "Officer," she whispered. "Yeah. What if she's really gone?" Ramirez inhaled, his voice steady despite the dread curling in his gut. "We're going to find her." "How do you know?" Her voice broke. He glanced down at Thor, who had lifted his nose again and quickened his pace. "Because Thor does." Thor's ears shot up. He broke into a run. Ramirez and Collins chased after him, and Maddie followed, tears streaking her face but her determination stronger than any fear. Then Thor skidded to a sudden stop. Ramirez nearly stumbled into him. "Thor, what?" The dog lowered his body, nose inches above the dirt. Ramirez's flashlight followed Thor's gaze. and illuminated something that made his stomach clench. A woman's scarf, tangled in a thorn bush, still warm to the touch. Maddie gasped. "Moms!" Thor barked furiously, then lunged forward again. Into a darkness even Ramirez feared to enter. But Thor didn't hesitate for a second. He had chosen his mission, and nothing was going to stop him. Thor shot forward like a bullet, muscles rippling under his vest as he tore down the narrow maintenance path. His leash snapped taut, nearly yanking Officer Ramirez off his feet. Thor slowed down, Ramirez shouted, stumbling to keep up. But Thor didn't slow. He didn't hesitate. He didn't look back. Whatever scent he'd locked onto, it wasn't faint. It wasn't old. It was fresh, alive, urgent. Deputy Collins sprinted behind them, radio bouncing against his vest, panting. "This dog's out of his mind. Ramirez, are you seeing this?" "He's tracking," Ramirez yelled back. "Tracking what?" Collins barked. Maddie answered before Ramirez could. "My mom." Her tiny voice cut through the dark path like a knife. Ramirez glanced at her flushed cheeks, wild hair, tear-streaked face. She wasn't just scared, she was holding herself together with sheer will. Her small legs struggled to keep pace with the adults, but she refused, absolutely refused, to let herself fall behind Thor. Thor suddenly veered off the gravel path entirely and darted into a patch of tall grass. Ramirez cursed as the grass whipped against his arms and face. The faint sounds of the fair, games, laughter, the buzz of generators, were swallowed by the dense foliage. Only Thor's heavy breathing and Maddie's fast little footsteps remained. Ramirez called out, "Collins, radio backup. Tell them we're moving toward the river access trail." Collins barked back, "Already did, units are on the way." But even he sounded uncertain. The maintenance path split into three directions, one toward the riverbank, one toward a cluster of old sheds, and one leading deeper into an area marked unauthorized, no entry. Thor didn't choose the river. He didn't choose the sheds. He chose the one place no one with sense would choose. The forbidden path. The overgrown trail ahead looked abandoned, swallowed by vines and shadows. A place untouched for years. A place that whispered danger with every step. Maddie swallowed hard, gripping the phone case tighter. "Why would she go there?" she whispered. Ramirez didn't want to answer. Because no one went down this path on their own. Not unless they were forced. Thor stopped abruptly, so fast Ramirez crashed into him. "Thor, what is it, boy?" Thor's head whipped toward the left. He sniffed the air deeply, once, twice. Then he barked wildly and took off again. This time straight toward the thick brush. Ramirez swore, "He's onto something big." Maddie struggled to keep up, her breaths coming in little panicked gasps. "Wait, Officer Ramirez, wait." He scooped her up without thinking, lifting her with one arm and sprinting behind Thor. "Hold on, kiddo, I've got you." Maddie wrapped her arms around his neck as tightly as she could. Her heart hammered against his shoulder blade. The path grew narrower, thorn bushes snagged at their clothes, tree branches cracked under Thor's weight. The dog shoved his way through like an unstoppable force. Then Maddie's voice trembled. "My mom's perfume, I smell it." Ramirez's blood ran cold. "You're sure?" he asked. She nodded quickly. "It smells like apples. She sprays it on everything, my jacket, her scarf, our car." Of course. That explained Thor's erratic behavior. He smelled the faint trail on Maddie's jacket, but somewhere up ahead, there had to be a much stronger concentration of it. A direct scent. A fresh path. Thor burst through the brush and onto a muddy uphill slope that led to a chain-link gate. The bottom of the fence had been bent upward, just enough for someone to crawl under. Thor shoved his nose beneath the opening and barked violently. Ramirez set Maddie down and crouched beside the fence. Fresh footprints, adult-sized, heading inward, and smaller prints, drag marks mixed with footprints, right beside them. He felt his stomach twist. She was forced, Ramirez whispered. Maddie's hands flew to her mouth as her eyes filled with horror. Collins caught up, panting. What did we find? Proof, Ramirez said tightly. Proof she was taken. Collins's face drained of color. Thor growled, deep and vibrating, as he sniffed along the fence line. Then he backed up, swung his body, and dove under the raised section with surprising agility. Thor, Ramirez yelled, reaching out too late. The dog was already on the other side, barking sharply from within the fenced-off utility property. Ramirez cursed under his breath. All right, we're going through too. He grabbed the lifted section, motioned Maddie forward, and helped her crawl under. Collins followed. The moment they were inside, Thor sprinted toward a wooden service gate attached to an old utility shed. He skidded to a stop and began pawing at something in the dirt. Ramirez ran up behind him and aimed his flashlight. Holy! A cell phone lay in the mud. Broken. Screen shattered. Half buried. Maddie gasped. That's my mom's other phone, the one she uses for work. Ramirez knelt, lifting it carefully. It was still warm. Collins, he breathed. This was dropped not long ago. Collins grabbed his radio. Dispatch, we have confirmation of a potential abduction. Evidence located behind the fairgrounds, moving deeper. Thor paced in circles, whining and growling alternately, agitated, distressed, frantic to move. He wanted them to go faster. Ramirez turned to Maddie. Sweetheart, I need you to breathe. Stay behind me, don't wander off, don't touch anything. Maddie nodded quickly, wiping tears with her sleeve. Her legs were trembling uncontrollably, but she refused to sit or rest. Every part of her needed to keep searching. Thor shoved his nose to the ground again and took off toward a gravel service road hidden behind the shed. This road led to exactly one place: the old warehouse by the river. Every deputy in the county knew that place. No electricity. No lighting. Condemned. Used sometimes by vagrants, sometimes by criminals, sometimes by no one at all. Maddie fell into step behind Thor and Ramirez, her breaths coming in sharp pants. She hugged her mother's cracked phone case against her heart as if it were her last connection to her. Thor stopped again suddenly, this time more violently than before. Ramirez grabbed his vest. Thor, what is it? Talk to me. Thor's head swung toward the left, his nose lifted. He sniffed once. Twice. Eyes narrowing. Then he growled, low, menacing, primal. Ramirez felt his entire spine go rigid. He had only heard Thor growl like this once before, during a raid when they discovered a criminal hiding behind a false wall. Something was ahead. Something dangerous. Maddie whispered, Is my mom there? Ramirez swallowed hard. Stay behind me, Maddie, stay close. Suddenly, Maddie pointed forward with a trembling hand. There. A shape lay ahead on the gravel. At first, Ramirez thought it was a pile of trash or a tarp. But as they got closer, his breath caught in his throat. It was a woman's purse. Maddie sprinted toward it before anyone could stop her. That's my mom's, she cried, collapsing to her knees. This is hers, this is hers. Inside the purse lay a crushed water bottle, a set of keys, some loose receipts, and a piece of torn fabric snagged on the strap. Ramirez crouched beside her. Maddie, this scarf. Her mother's scarf. The one they'd found earlier, stuck in the thorns. Ramirez's voice was laced with grim confirmation. It matches. Thor barked furiously, jerking his head toward the looming warehouse shadow visible through the trees. Ramirez followed the direction of Thor's stare. The warehouse loomed like a monster, dark, silent, its broken windows like hollow eyes watching them. A faint buzzing sound hummed from inside. Maddie clutched the purse with shaking hands, her voice tiny and terrified. "She's in there, is she?" Thor lowered his body, growling at the building. Ramirez placed a steadying hand on Maddie's shoulder. "We're going to find her," he said, though the dread in his voice was unmistakable. Thor barked once, sharp, urgent, commanding, and took off toward the warehouse. And no one, not Ramirez, not Collins, not even Maddie, knew what they were about to walk into. The warehouse towered over them like an abandoned giant, rusted metal walls streaked with years of rain, graffiti scrawled across its lower panels, windows shattered into jagged teeth. It sat at the edge of the riverbank as if clinging to the earth by stubborn force, half swallowed by weeds and decay. It wasn't just old. It was wrong. The kind of place kids dared each other to touch for 1 second. The kind of place adults avoided at night. The kind of place where silence didn't feel natural, it felt intentional. And yet beneath that eerie quiet, a faint buzzing vibrated through the ground. Machinery, a generator, something running inside when by all rights, nothing should have been running at all. Thor growled again, deeper this time. The hair along his spine bristled. His normally steady breathing grew shallow, measured, ready. Ramirez lifted a hand to stop the group. "Everyone hold." Maddie froze behind him, clutching her mother's purse against her chest so tightly her knuckles whitened. Deputy Collins drew his weapon. "Ramirez, this place is supposed to be condemned. No power, no access. Why does it sound like a machine is on?" Ramirez's eyes narrowed. Someone brought power in, a portable generator maybe, means someone is inside. Maddie's voice shook. "My mom, she could be in there." Ramirez swallowed, forcing his voice to stay steady. "We're going to check, carefully." Thor's ears flicked at the word carefully, and he let out a sharp bark as if to argue the point. He wanted in. He wanted in now. "Buddy, we can't rush blind," Ramirez said quietly, gently gripping Thor's vest. "We play it smart." The dog whined impatiently but didn't push forward. The group approached slowly, boots crunching over gravel and broken glass. Maddie tried to be silent, but her breathing was too fast, too shallow, too loud, almost enough to drown out the faint humming from the building. Ramirez reached the large loading bay door and tested it. Locked. Sealed tight. He motioned to Collins, "Check the side entrance." Collins jogged along the left side of the warehouse until he found a metal service door. He pulled the handle. It wouldn't budge. "Locked too." Ramirez cursed under his breath. Maddie pointed with trembling fingers toward the back of the building. "What about around the other side? There might be another door." "We'll check it," Ramirez said. "Stay with us." Thor, however, had already chosen a direction. He trotted around the corner of the building, nose pressed to the ground, his tail stiff as a metal rod. His paws kicked up dust as he sniffed the earth, moving quickly, left, right, doubling back, pushing forward again. Ramirez followed him around the corner, with Maddie glued to his side. The right side of the warehouse was worse. A row of smashed windows, rusty siding peeled back like torn metal skin, and vines crawling upward as if trying to reclaim the building entirely. Halfway down the wall, Thor stopped. Dead stop. Ramirez's heart thudded once, heavy. Thor's nose hovered inches above a narrow drainage grate. Rust clung to its edges and weeds poked through. It looked insignificant, like nothing, and yet Thor pawed at it frantically. "What is it, boy?" Ramirez crouched slowly. The dog barked twice sharp, urgent, then began digging, scraping his claws against the rusted metal until sparks flicked off. Collins caught up, panting. "Is he losing it?" "No," Ramirez whispered. "He's found something." Thor backed up, braced himself, and clawed again with even more desperation. Let me see, Ramirez murmured. He aimed his flashlight at the grate. At first he saw only rust and dirt. Then he saw something else. Something that made his blood freeze. A strip of white fabric, caught beneath the grate, tearing slowly under Thor's frantic scratching. Ramirez reached in carefully, prying up the edge of the grate. With a grunt, he lifted it enough to pull the fabric free. Maddie gasped. "That's my mom's shirt," she whispered. "The one she wore today, the one with the tiny white buttons." Ramirez turned the fabric over. It wasn't just torn. It wasn't just snagged. It was stained. A faint smear of dirt, mud, and something else he didn't want to identify in front of Maddie. Thor growled, nose glued to the edge of the grate. Collins blew out a shaky breath. Someone dragged her through here. "No," Ramirez murmured. "Someone moved her past this point. Thor's picking up her scent from the opening behind the wall." He aimed the flashlight deeper, into a dark vent tunnel running under the floor. "Something's inside," Ramirez whispered, "or someone." Suddenly, a sound pierced the air. Not a hum. Not machinery. Not wind. A scream. A short, high, muffled cry that echoed from somewhere deep inside the warehouse. Maddie froze, her eyes widened, face paling to porcelain. "That's her," she grabbed Ramirez's sleeve with both hands. "That was my mom, Officer Ramirez, that was her." Ramirez's hand tightened around his weapon. Collins around the back. "Now, break the door if you have to." Collins took off at full sprint. Maddie trembled violently. "We have to go in, we have to go now." "We will," Ramirez said, "but we have to be smart." Thor disagreed. He started barking, furiously, then ran to the corner of the building where the back entrance lay hidden behind a half-collapsed stack of wooden pallets. Ramirez pulled Maddie close. "Stay behind me." Thor didn't wait for direction. He pawed at the pallets, pushing against them with his shoulder until they shifted and toppled with a loud crash that echoed through the empty lot. Behind the debris was the old service entry. A dented metal door, no handle, but a slight gap at the bottom, large enough for Thor to shove his nose through. He sniffed once, and his entire demeanor changed. He snarled. Not protective. Not warning. Predatory. Ramirez felt a chill run through him. When a trained K9 snarled like that, it meant only one thing. A threat was active. A threat was dangerous. A threat was very close. Maddie's lip trembled. Is she in there? Is my mom really in there? Ramirez crouched in front of her, putting both hands on her shoulders. Listen to me, sweetheart. Thor smells her. That scream, if it was your mom, we're going to reach her, but you stay right behind us. Do not run inside on your own. Understand? Her chin wobbled, she nodded. Collins reappeared from the other side of the warehouse, breathless. Side doors jammed. We need to breach. Thor suddenly lunged at the door and clawed at the bottom edge again, barking hysterically. He's telling us something, Maddie whispered. Ramirez studied the bottom gap. He lowered himself onto his stomach and shined the flashlight inward. At first he saw only concrete. Then, footprints. Fresh ones. Tracking mud across the inside hallway. And a tiny smear of what looked like blood. Ramirez stood abruptly. We're breaching here. Collins nodded. I'll get the sledge. But Thor wasn't waiting. He rammed his shoulder against the door, once, twice, 3 times until the hinges screeched. Thor, stop, you'll injure. But the dog kept slamming into it with every ounce of muscle he had. Bang! 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 The door shuddered with each impact. Collins helped him. Collins lifted the sledgehammer and swung. Crash! The door dented. Thor rammed it again. Bang! Collins swung again. Crash! The metal began to buckle. Maddie covered her ears, shaking. Please, please hurry. Ramirez shouted, one more. Collins swung with everything he had. Crack! The door flew inward, slamming against something on the other side. Thor burst through the gap before anyone could react. Maddie, stay here, Ramirez barked as he chased after the dog. The hallway inside was dark, lit only by flickers of failing fluorescent lights. Shadows danced across the walls. Thor skidded to a halt at the corner, sniffed the air, and whipped his head to the left. A new sound vibrated through the hall. A low mechanical hum. A generator. A machine. Then a muffled voice. A woman. Maddie. Maddie gasped behind them. That's her. Thor growled again and sprinted toward the sound. Ramirez raised his weapon. His pulse thundered. Collins' breath hitched. Maddie's heart cracked open with a mix of hope and terror. Because that voice, thin, weak, trembling, could only mean one thing. Maddie's mother was still alive. But something inside this warehouse was keeping her that way. Thor sprinted down the dim hallway so fast his paws barely touched the concrete. His nails clicked sharply against the floor, echoing like frantic Morse code in the darkness. Ramirez charged after him, weapon raised, heart pounding so violently he could feel it in his teeth. Collins followed close behind, flashlight slicing through the shadows, and Maddie trailed just a few steps back, too terrified to stay behind, too desperate to stop. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, buzzing like electric insects. The whole building felt alive, breathing, humming, vibrating with something unseen. Thor slid to a halt at a heavy metal door at the end of the hall. His growl reverberated down the corridor. Ramirez's pulse spiked. He'd heard that growl before. Only twice in his entire career. And both times, the threat behind it was real. Collins pointed his flashlight at the door. There's light coming from underneath. A faint stripe of warm, yellowish glow seeped through the bottom gap. Ramirez crouched, peering inside. He froze. Someone was moving. Someone crossed the narrow slice of light. A silhouette. Human. Adult. Not Maddie's mother. Too tall, too broad, too deliberate. Ramirez whispered, "There's someone else in there." Maddie whimpered behind them, "Is it her? Is my mom in there?" Before Ramirez could answer, Thor let out a fierce, guttural bark. Not once. Not twice. 3 sharp bursts. Danger code. Collins, Ramirez whispered sharply. "Ready on my signal. Maddie, stay behind me, don't move." Maddie clutched her backpack straps so tightly her fingers trembled. Collins nodded, bracing himself, sledgehammer still in hand. Ramirez reached for the doorknob, slowly, carefully. It was warm. Too warm. Not from the building. From inside. From machinery. He twisted the knob. Locked. Thor snarled, pressing his shoulder against the door. "Hang on, boy," Ramirez whispered. "We're doing this together." He gave Collins a look. "We breach hard." Collins lifted the sledgehammer. Crack! The door dented inward. Something clattered on the other side. Thor barked furiously, packing in tight circles. Crack! Another hit. Another dent. A muffled voice erupted from inside, the same fragile voice they'd heard earlier. "Help, please help." Maddie sobbed, "Mom." Ramirez swallowed hard, again now. Collins swung with everything he had. The door burst open, slamming against the inside wall with a metallic howl. Thor shot through the opening like a missile. Ramirez and Collins rushed inside. And then, they all froze. The room was not what they expected. It wasn't some dim, filthy hiding place. It wasn't a torture room. It wasn't a cell. It was a workshop. Bright lamps dangled from scaffolding overhead, illuminating rows of half-disassembled machinery, old engines, car parts, stacks of metal, crates filled with tools and wires. The concrete floor was covered with oil stains and sawdust. A portable generator rumbled in the corner, providing the hum they'd heard outside. Then Ramirez saw her. Maddie's mother. On the far side of the room, sitting with her back against a support beam, her hands tied with rope, her clothes dirtied and torn, her face pale, streaked with tears, a gash on her forehead staining her hair dark red. But she was alive. Weak, bruised, terrified. But alive. She lifted her head. Maddie. Maddie sprinted forward before Ramirez could stop her. Maddie, Ramirez yelled, lunging after her. Thor barked a warning, low, urgent, commanding. Too late. A shadow moved behind a towering stack of crates. Ramirez jerked his weapon up. Show your hands, he bellowed, now. But the figure darted out of sight, slipping between machinery like a ghost. Collins cursed, where did he? Suddenly, a heavy metal sheet swung down from above like a trapdoor, crashing against the concrete and blocking the room's only exit. Slam! The sound thundered through the warehouse. Maddie screamed, no. Collins shouted, we're trapped. The generator hummed louder as the lights flickered ominously. Ramirez's throat tightened. Someone had planned this. Someone had been watching. Someone had been waiting for them to walk right in. Thor raced to the fallen sheet metal, pawing at it and barking violently. He threw his shoulder against it again and again, but it didn't budge. Ramirez grabbed Maddie and pulled her behind him. Stay with your mom. Both of you stay low. Maddie darted to her mother, sobbing as she wrapped her arms around her. Her mother buried her face in her daughter's hair. I'm okay, she whispered. I'm okay, sweetheart, I'm okay. But her voice trembled every time the generator's rumble deepened. Collins swung the sledgehammer at the metal barrier. Clang! It echoed painfully loud. He swung again. Clang! Still no movement. Ramirez scanned the upper ledges, scanning for the shadow. He's here. He's still in the room. Keep your guard up. Thor's barking turned directional, sharp, precise, pointing them toward the upper rafters. Ramirez aimed upward. Something shifted. A foot. A pant leg. A glint of metal. There, Ramirez shouted. A man leapt from the rafters, landing on an upper platform above the machinery. Tall, broad, hood pulled low, face invisible. He held something in his hand. A crowbar. Painted black. Raised like a weapon. Ramirez aimed his gun. Drop it, you're surrounded. Thor growled so fiercely, it vibrated the air. The man didn't drop the crowbar. Instead, he kicked a toolbox off the ledge. It plummeted toward them. Move, Collins yelled, shoving Ramirez aside as the metal box exploded across the floor, scattering wrenches, bolts, and sharp tools in every direction. The noise sent Maddie's mother flinching into her daughter's arms. The hooded man ran across the upper platform. Ramirez took off after him, weaving between machinery, boots sliding over spilled oil. Collins followed, almost slipping. Thor darted ahead of them, leaping onto a crate and trying to reach the upper platform, but it was too high. The man vanished behind a wall of metal racks. Cut him off, Ramirez yelled. Collins, go left. Collins sprinted around the machinery. Ramirez moved right. Thor scrambled around the base of the platform, nose high, tracking him. Maddie held her mother tightly as they watched in terror. The man's footsteps clattered overhead. Then silence. Ramirez stopped cold. He stopped moving. Why did he stop? Collins scanned with his flashlight. He's planning something. Thor let out a long, low growl. That's when they heard it. A click, a snap, the grind of shifting metal. And suddenly, the platform above them groaned. "Oh no," Ramirez whispered. The whole structure tilted. Tools slid off. Bolts rolled. Cables unwound. And then the platform began to collapse. "Get down," Ramirez roared. Thor barked wildly, rushing toward Maddie and her mother. Collins dove to shield them. The platform came crashing down with a deafening boom, sending dust and metal flying everywhere. When the dust settled, the platform was destroyed, crushed into the machinery below. But the hooded man was gone, disappeared into the confusion. Ramirez coughed through the dust, eyes scanning wildly. Where is he? Where did he go? Collins pushed debris off himself. He couldn't have gotten past us. We blocked every exit. Maddie clung to her mother, crying, shaking. "He's still here," Ramirez growled. "He's hiding, watching, waiting." Thor barked once. A warning. Then he froze, ears forward, muscles tense. He turned slowly, staring at a dark gap between two stacked crates on the far side of the room. Ramirez saw where he was looking. A shadow stood inside the gap. Still, silent, watching them. The hooded man lifted his head and smiled, not with joy, with intention, with knowledge, with control. Ramirez's blood ran cold, because the man was holding something new in his hands. A device, small, metal, blinking with a single red light. Thor let out a sound Ramirez had never heard from him before. A low howl of warning, right as the red light began to blink faster. Something in the room was about to happen, something none of them were ready for, you said. Continue Part 7. 1200 wards. Cold air swept across the riverfront as dawn crept over the horizon, brushing the sky with faint strokes of gray and gold. The abandoned warehouse district, once buzzing with trucks and laborers, now felt like a ghost town under police lockdown. Units had searched all night. Drones hummed overhead. K9s combed every alley, every rooftop, every shadowed gap between rusting cargo containers. But the man in the hood had vanished, slipped away like smoke. Ramirez hadn't slept. He sat on the bumper of a patrol car with a paper cup of untouched coffee cooling beside him. Thor lay at his feet, resting but not relaxed. His eyes stayed half open, listening for something Ramirez couldn't hear. The little girl's voice kept echoing in Ramirez's mind. "He's not gone, is he?" No, he wasn't gone. He was preparing. Ramirez could feel it. Collins approached, dark circles bruising the skin under his eyes. Search teams checked the river tunnels. Nothing. Checked the scrapyard. Nothing. Checked rooftops for zipline rigs, rope anchors. Still nothing. Ramirez didn't look up. He didn't run. "You don't know that." "Yes," Ramirez said quietly, "I do." Thor suddenly lifted his head, ears locking forward. Ramirez froze. Collins whispered, "You hear something." "No," Ramirez murmured, "but he does." Thor stood, hackles rising. And then, a chirp from Ramirez's radio. "Dispatch to Sergeant Ramirez, urgent." Ramirez snatched the radio. "Go." "Anonymous call to our hotline, male voice," said 4 words, then hung up. "What words?" Dispatch hesitated. "Check your home, Ramirez." A chill stabbed through him. Collins swore under his breath, "He knows where you live." Ramirez didn't respond. Instead, he began walking fast toward his squad car. Thor followed, muscles taut. Collins jogged beside him. "Hold on, take a full unit with you." "No time." "Ramirez." "If he wanted to kill my family, he would have done it already," Ramirez snapped. "He wants me to follow him. He's setting the stage." Collins grabbed his arm. "Then don't go alone." Thor barked sharply, once urgent like he agreed. Ramirez exhaled, chest tight. Fine, but we move now. Within minutes, 2 cruisers, a K-9 unit van and Collins' SUV were barreling across the freeway, sirens dark, lights off, stealth mode. The sun climbed the horizon, warming the sky but not the tension twisting Ramirez's stomach. His house wasn't far. A small, modest ranch-style home with a cracked driveway and a yard he rarely had time to mow. It looked peaceful, ordinary, which somehow made it worse. The convoy parked around the corner, officers fanned out. Collins checked his weapon. Ramirez's pulse hammered. Thor growled. Ramirez stepped forward and froze. The front door was cracked open 2 inches. Not broken. Not forced. Just open. Collins whispered, "He's inside." Ramirez swallowed hard, nodding. He pushed the door with the barrel of his gun. It creaked open. The living room was silent. Too silent. Ramirez stepped inside first, gun raised, Thor at heel, breathing fast and trembly with tension. Every picture frame on the walls was perfectly in place. Except one. The photo of Ramirez the day he joined the K-9 unit, him kneeling beside Thor as a young pup. The frame lay face down on the carpet. Ramirez felt his throat tighten. Collins murmured, "You okay?" Ramirez didn't answer. He crouched and lifted the frame. A note was taped underneath it. Just one sentence. "You chose the wrong dog." Thor snarled, a deep, vibrating threat that shook Ramirez's bones. Collins whispered, "What does that mean?" Ramirez stood slowly, eyes burning. "It means this is personal." He turned to Thor, "Search." Thor bolted down the hallway, nose to the floor. Ramirez followed, every step tight with dread. He passed the guest room, empty. The bathroom, nothing. The laundry room, silent. Then Thor stopped. In front of the basement door. The wooden door shuddered slightly, like a breeze was blowing against it from inside. Collins raised his weapon. "This is a trap." "I know." Ramirez put his hand on the doorknob. It was cold. Too cold. He opened it. The basement. The staircase descended into darkness. A single light flickered at the bottom. Thor growled deep in his chest. Ramirez whispered, "We're going slow." They stepped down, one creaking stair at a time. Halfway down, the basement light steadied, no longer flickering. A voice drifted up the stairs. Calm. Unhurried. Familiar. "Welcome home, Sergeant." Ramirez stiffened. "Show yourself." "I will," the voice said, "but you won't like what you see." They reached the bottom, and the hooded man stepped out from behind a support beam. He was tall, lean, wearing dark clothes that blended with the shadows. The hood fell back slightly, revealing a face that sent shockwaves through Ramirez. It was a face he knew. A face he had seen in photos. A face attached to case files. Case files he had read a dozen times. Collins whispered, "No way." "It's him," Ramirez said. The man raised his hands casually. "You remember, don't you?" Ramirez felt his chest tighten. Ethan Crow, missing 15 years, declared dead, kidnapped at 13. "Not kidnapped," Ethan corrected, smiling bitterly. "Abandoned, forgotten, written off as a loss on paper. Your department never looked for me." Ramirez's heart pounded. "That was before my time." "But not before your dog," Ethan said softly, gesturing to Thor. "Your K-9 unit lost my trail, lost me, and I survived alone." Ramirez clenched his jaw. "You started hunting families, women, children, why them?" Ethan's smile twisted. "Because they had what I didn't, someone who looked for them, someone who fought for them." He stepped closer. "And I wanted to see how far a hero, like you, could go when the game hit home." Collins aimed his gun. It's over, hands where we can. Ethan moved faster than they expected. He tossed something toward the floor. A metal canister clinked and hissed. Gas. Ramirez shouted, mask, mask, G.O. Thor lunged, grabbing Ramirez's sleeve and yanking him backward, just as the gas burst, filling the air. Collins dropped to one knee, coughing violently. But Ramirez managed to pull his shirt over his nose and bull through the haze. Thor charged ahead, despite the burning fumes. Ethan sprinted toward the back of the basement. A door. A hidden exit. Ramirez chased him, chest on fire. Thor leapt onto Ethan's leg, teeth sinking deep through fabric. Ethan screamed, more anger than pain. He swung a metal pipe, cracking it against Thor's ribs. Thor yelped but refused to let go. Ramirez roared, Thor, let go. At the command embedded deep into his training, Thor released instantly and dropped back, limping. Ramirez lunged. He tackled Ethan to the floor. The two men slammed into cold concrete, grappling violently. Ethan clawed for the pipe. Ramirez grabbed his wrist. This ends now. Ethan spat blood. You're too late, I already picked the next one. Ramirez's rage exploded. No you. Thor, still limping, pushed forward with a wounded growl and clamped onto Ethan's arm again, controlled but devastating. Ethan howled. Ramirez ripped the pipe away and pressed Ethan's face to the ground. Collins stumbled down the stairs, gas mask now on. Sarge, you good? Ramirez forced himself to breathe, hard, steady. It's done, he said hoarsely. Ethan's voice came out broken, muffled against the floor. You saved them today, but you can't save everyone. Ramirez tightened the cuffs. Watch me. Aftermath. Hours later, Ethan Crow was loaded into an armored transport unit, screaming threats that dissolved into the morning air. The sun had fully risen now. The nightmare was over. Collins leaned against the ambulance while medics checked Thor's ribs. You okay, buddy? Thor thumped his tail despite the pain. Ramirez looked at the dog, eyes burning with pride. You saved my life today, he whispered. Thor nuzzled his hand, accepting the praise like a soldier receiving a medal. Maddie and her mother arrived later, escorted by detectives for a follow-up. When Maddie saw Thor wrapped in a support bandage, she ran to him, tears spilling. Is he hurt? Is he okay? Ramirez knelt beside her. He's okay, he's the tough one. Thor licked her hand gently. Maddie smiled through tears. He saved me and he saved you. Ramirez nodded. Yeah, he saved all of us. Final scene. That evening, Ramirez sat outside the station as dusk painted the sky. Thor lay at his feet, watching cars pass by, calm now. Ramirez murmured, Hey boy, we did it, it's finally over. Thor looked up, eyes warm, steady. A hero. A guardian. A living legend. Ramirez smiled softly. Come on, let's go home. And together, side by side, they walked into the quiet, peaceful night. For the first time in days. Finally, safe. The end.